Hi, Rebbe.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
What's going on? What about mitzvah bacher?
Yep. You remember that
Good.
speech you made? It was great.
Good.
Morning.
All right, ready? Wow.
Just a reminder for everybody to mute your phone. There's a couple of phones that are not muted, and just turn it on when you need to say something. Thank you. Hope everyone can figure out how to mute it by tapping the screen and touching the bottom left button.
The bottom left of the screen?
That's the mute button, yeah. The one that has a picture of a microphone, you want it to be red with a line crossed through it so that your voice doesn't come through unless you need to speak.
I don't see it, but
here we go.
Tap the screen.
It's not for Rebbe Paltiel.
It's not for Rebbe Paltiel, obviously. But
all right.
Still, that's how it works. If you tap the screen.
Okay, can you frame your face into the screen, please?
How is it now?
Keep going down.
You have to see it on yourself. You could see it. You see it on yourself. You see on the frame how it is.
Okay, we can't see you anymore. You shouldn't have.
Yeah, the video too needs to be white without the line going through it, not red, or else it's not going to show your face. That's pretty much how it works, these buttons on the bottom.
Okay.
Okay, Rabbi, we see that you muted your phone. To unmute, you just touch the screen and there's a little microphone lower left.
Okay.
And when the microphone is white, that means it's working. When it's red, means that person has put themselves on mute. And if I check, there you are. Great.
All right.
Super.
Okay. All right. To be rolling. All right. We are on page Kuf Nun Gimel, and on the bottom of the page. You're dealing with some questions and issues or insights that are extremely subtle. Think about Makifim. One thing about Makif is that it is totally intangible from a world approach. That is why it is makif. It stands above. Not only stands above, but actually encompasses the entire worldly reality. That which encompasses cannot be understood. Excuse me. Cannot be understood from a practical approach.
Are we on Kufnan Hay or Kufnan Gimel? I thought we were Kufnan Hay.
Kufnun Gimel, where are we?
I thought it's Kufnan Hay in the bottom.
Kufnun Hey. Oh, shucks. Yeah, I'm looking at it and say this isn't. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Kufnun Hey. Oy Samachalov. Yeah. We were talking about the effect of makif and how makif can be related to from a worldly perspective, from worldly approach. That is possible only with the approach of beetle. Because anything that is a mitzius cannot possibly recognize and relate to makif.
I'm sorry for interrupting. It would help a lot if Rabbi Paltiel can adjust we should be able to see better. Okay, now, no, again, back how it was.
How's it now?
A little better.
In the top right, there's a frame where you see yourself. And the goal is that you're in the middle of that little
How's it
picture.
now?
Now it's
It's a lot,
perfect.
that's a lot better. Thank you, Rabbi.
All right. Hello, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to start from the beginning of Samachalef again. To start in the middle is virtually impossible, and at least we'll have a complete approach. Hopefully, we will now go without interruption. Prior to that, we discussed the effect of beetle. Beetle means that the Nivra is totally incorporated in the principle of the Boire. It is a real presence, but within the Boire, not as an entity unto itself at all. This is beetle. And we said also in the Kitzur, as a result of beetle, the Nivra is able to receive chayus from Elokus. This is in fact what we were discussing. The principle of Chayus, particularly Chayus from Elokus. And I want to review again the principle of Chayus that we have discussed. Chayus, the word Chayus means life. In contrast to existence of being Heva, to being in a presence in the Metzius. And I pointed out the other day how that it's interesting that in Chassidus, there is not a mention of Heva, of coming into being. Everything is spoken of in terms of Chayus. Even creation itself is referred to as Chayus. And the principle in this is and I'd like we should really reflect on this. All existence, and here we mean literally, all existence is a divine presence. There is no worldly existence per se. At whatever level we identify existence, it is a divine presence. There's no such thing as existence, but for the divine presence. Divine the whole definition of divine. Let me go back and try to discuss about the principle of divine, godly. What is the difference between worldly and godly? Worldly is an existence that actually allows for two states of being and not being. This is why it's called creation, because you can readily see that this is something which came to be and it could be, it could not be. That's world. Divine is a presence that is there not because it's being brought into being. Rather, it is there because of the principle of the truth itself. The divine presence is, is a must be. Divine is not something that comes into being. It's a must, it's a being that is different by definition, by default, present. That's what divine means. And for this, we use the word chayus, life. Chayus is a good means by which we can relate to these principles. Because chayus is something which we actually experience. We also live, Baruch Hashem. The life element that we experience, in contrast means a distinct, different, than everything else that we experience, that we have. Everything that we have, we can really see how we cannot have it and yes have it. And when we do have it, we don't have it because something is being presented to us. We have it because this is a fundamental reality that embraces us, makes itself known to us. Surely we all remember when we discussed the principle of breathing, of air. Air, on a physical level, air is the experience of life. Not only because without air we cannot live, but more than that, the very experience of living in the physical world is being in an encasement of air. This is something which we discussed many times. So when we breathe air, we do not have the sensation. We do not have the experience of getting something from a distance, from a place that it is not there. Like when you feed yourself food that wasn't there before. Now you put it in your mouth and you have it. Air is something which is all the time, which is there all the time. And this, we pointed out, is a miraculous aspect in the creation itself, in the physical creation. In other words, in the physical creation, we experience a divine level of experience. Divine level means something that is there by the default. In breathing, we experience that type of experience. We breathe, but we breathe not by actively drawing the air and sampling the air from someplace, but rather being encompassed. Encompassed means included, contained within the air. And the air there then encompasses us, and the air forces itself into our nostrils without our effort. So we're not even conscious that we are breathing. The air provides for all the activity that is necessary to have the air give us life. Everything. It is there, and it enters our nostrils and protrudes into our lungs and gives us the entire sensation of life from the air itself. This is the sensation of life. Life, the sensation of life is that which is given to the Nivra from the source of life, where he's not even aware that it's possible not to be. This is the experience, this is the sensation of life. Now, the creation, the divine koyach that creates the world. The creation is being created miraculously by divine koyach. And here's the important point that will connect to what we discussed before. This creation, the divine koyach that creates, this creation is absolutely constant. Although, at the same time, it's a creation of a world, which means it has to be rejuvenated and recreated again. The creation and the recreation is always constant. The reason it is constant, the reason that we don't even sense the yin that the world is being created, is that the world is encompassed, contained within the divine spirit, chayas, and therefore the world has has a life, even though it's a physical world, it has a life element. Life element means it is there, and we don't sense that it comes into being. It's a physical material, you don't sense that it comes into being. It is there because Elokus presents it in the form of a physical entity, in a other created entity. This is the effect of a creation that is affected by a makif. Makif means it encompasses the entire reality. So wherever you turn, you see the same thing, as we said the other day. You cannot turn away from it. Although it creates a real mitzvah. And this is where, excuse me, the principle of Beetle comes in. Because the Nivra, the created entity, is a real mitzvah. It has a self-orientation. And yet at the same time, it has a living quality. Self-orientation means that it has a beginning and a starting point. It's a living quantity, means it doesn't have a sense of coming into being. The reason it does not have a sense of coming into being is because it's bottled to the makif that gives us presence. This is the phenomenal thing of beetle. This is why it's called beetle rather than yichud. Yichud is when things are united, internally united. Beetle is when you have two separate entities. Excuse me, a nivro is an entity unto itself. Yet it has chayus, divine chayus. The reason it has divine chayus is because it has the element of beetle. Let's try to identify the element of beetle. Avraham Avinu had an Eved known in Torah as Eliezer. Eliezer was an Eved of Avraham Avinu. Eliezer was dedicated to Avraham in totality. When Eliezer went by Avraham's shlichus to get a wife for Yitzchok, so he knew that the only way that he can possibly succeed in this mission is if Avram's chus will bring it about. Not his wisdom, not his activity. Avram's chus will bring it about. This is why, when he said his prayer to the Mebesh, that Mebesh should identify the girl for Yitzchok, the color for Yitzchok, he spoke always exclusively in the name of Avram. Because Eliezer had no personal sense of power or value or capability, but for the schus of Avram. And this is why he was so successful. This is called beetle. Even though he is the one who went to Amarayim and he had 10 camels and all that, excuse me, that was not instrumentally getting the wife for Yitzchak. It is Avram's chus that got the wife for Yitzchak. This is called beetle. The beetle is effective. I'm going to read the end of the last lines in the Kitzur, Kuf Nun Hey. And that will summarize the whole thing. Teyel as a beetle, the benefit and the effect of the beetle, who is Sheyuchal HaNibro Lekabel Chayes Melakus, so that the Nibro should be able to receive Chayus from Melakus. And I'm calling your attention to the expression of here, Kabel Chayus Melakus. They say the Kabel Chayus Melakus clearly does not mean that he should be created by Melakus. It means he's Mekabel Chayus, receives Chayus directly from Melakus. Because Chayus is a divine element, only a divine element. The Nibro needs to have that Chayus, of divine Chayus. How can a Nibro get divine Chayus? He's a Nibro, he's a Mitzias, a world of Mitzias. Elokus is divine. It's above world. The only way that the Nibra can receive Chayus from Elokus is by the element of beetle. At which point, there is a complete unification. He is both a Nibra and he is also alive from Elokus. This is the beetle. This beetle is what enables the created world to have an element of chayus, of a life element. Let us translate when we say that the world has an element of chayus. And again, we have to focus in and get into a thought process that is not worldly. The materials of the world, everything in the world, the sky, the moon, the sun, the earth, everything. Everything in the world has a distinct presence. A distinct presence means that it could be, and it can also conceivably not be. It is there because it is brought into being. But it is there as a distinct presence. Yet, and here is the thought that we have to focus in. It is true that the earth is a created entity. And we walk on the earth, we see that readily the limits of earth. At the same time, the earth represents to us a presence that is unquestionable. A presence that we cannot possibly perceive it not being there. Now we want to ask ourselves a question. What is so compelling about the presence of earth that we cannot distract our attention from it or from its existence? So we cannot perceive it not being there. Earth is a complete composite of many different pieces of rock and earth and river and so forth. Everything is a distinct entity. And yet, to perceive earth not being is impossible. Although it's a final presence. It has a beginning, it has an end. We even know the size of the earth. We know the circumference of the earth, we know the diameter of the earth. And yet we say, this is a must be, we cannot, it's unconscionable, we cannot perceive it not being there. The reason that we cannot perceive the earth, the absence of the earth, is not due to the reality of the earth itself. Rather, it is due to the principle that the earth stands for. The earth stands for the principle that there be a world, a functioning world, upon which the human being will be able to do his thing. A world that accommodates every kind of activity that a human being can conjure up. This is what the earth stands for. To perceive that the earth is not there is impossible, because it's impossible to perceive that there be a world without human activity on it. The reason we cannot perceive a world without human activity there is due to the principle that human activity is what the world is all about. This is called the Chayus.
Danielle, phone. Mute your phone.
Sorry.
This is called the Chayus. The life element. What is it about? We always give the simplest of illustrations of what's called Mishalim. You go into a home, and the home consists of all the different pieces that a home consists in. Yet all the pieces that the home consists in are not what makes a home a home. What makes a home is that there is a living human being that occupies this home. The minute you go into a home, you start looking, who owns this home? What's the problem with all these furnishings? This is not what makes a home a home. There's a living element in this home. The living element of this home is a living element that is not physical at all. That is the source of the life of this home. What brought it into being? What is it about? And it's about the human being who occupies it. Even when the human being is not there, in absence of the human being, the home represents a human being who owns it. We discussed the other day quite extensively the principle of ownership. Ownership is a divine gift to the human being. Ownership is a statement that the human being owns this not by virtue, by a worldly process, but by a gift from the Rebbe. The Rebbe guarantees him having this. This is not ownership. And this is why we spoke the other day. To take something away from an owner represents an aveira, a violation of Hashem's command. Where does Hashem come into this? This is maybe a human being's ownership experience. A human being owns it because of Hashem's gift to him that he should own it. And this is why to violate that ownership is an aveira. You violate Hashem's presence rather than the human being's experience. This is what's called gneva, gzeila, and so forth. This union that the world, the physical world, is permeated by a divine presence, by giving the world a sense of reality, of divine level of reality, is called Chayus. It's called Chayus, life element in the world itself. This life element in the world does not explain itself where you get it from. It is something which is granted to it from the divine source itself. This is why this is called Chayus, because Chayus is always sourced, coming from the source of Chayus. of the divine presence. Okay. And in order that the nivra, that the worldly entity, there's an entity unto itself, should be able to receive chayus, a life element, an uninterruptible presence. For that, the nivra has to have bittul. Bittul means that the nivra recognizes and dedicates its functionality to fulfilling the will of the Elokus, of the God, of the godliness that gives him chayus. This is why it's imperative that the nivra should maintain as an element of purity, because chayus eliki cannot coexist with impurity. Tahara. Okay. All right. Now we go into Samach Aleph.
Rabbi?
Yes, just 1 second. Let me just conclude this introduction. What do we have up until this point? That regardless of how worldly and the world is, it is one and continues to receive chayus from Elokus. But for that chayus, there is no such thing as an existence, a worldly existence. Yes, sir.
So, just on this last point about Tara, purity, is it okay to think, is it the same or different from all that we've been saying before about bittul? Is it the same attribute or something different that purity indicates?
Oh, no, it's the same attribute. However, purity is where the divine attribute permeates, as identifiable in the worldly presence itself.
So
Spoke about it
Eved,
many times.
the mashal before Eved Eliezer, he was exhibiting both bittul and purity in his mission.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We mentioned many times. How do we prepare ourselves? What is washing? Apitoila means you go to mikveh, you wash your hands 6 times. This is not a worldly level of cleanliness. It's a cleanliness that represents a purity, a divine level of purity. Typically, when we want to wash our hands, to make a bracha, let's say on the Netilas Yadayim, we go through 2 steps. The first step is we wash our hands with soap and water and check whether our hands are completely clean. Once our hands are completely clean, on a worldly level, then we can come and take a quart of water and pour it over our hands and bring it up to a point where it has a cleanliness of a tahara type. But that cannot be brought about if there is some kind of a uncleanliness on the worldly level.
Okay.
So all these that we just now discussed, although this is a common practice, this common practice is representative of a divine presence in our own life, in our own midst. And thus, it should follow that we should feel the divine presence in our being constantly. Because in fact, we are acting and we are living our lives in that vein. And yet, Rebbe pointing out, we don't have that constant sensation of the godly presence. The reason we do not have the godly sensation in our own presence is due to the divine sensation, divine sense or encompassment of the world is at a level that the world cannot possibly itself sense it. God knows it, but the world does not know that God knows it. This is essentially the description of worldly life. Now we're going further again, Samachalaf. So far we talked about beetle, the effect of beetle. Now we're going to go, I might as well introduce, we're going to go to recognize how our relationship to the divine has a more personal level of experience rather than just beetle. How actually our Mitzvah is permeated by the divine presence, the divine sensation. Okay, now we're going inside Samachala. There's further what to say in this vein. The vein is how the Lakus affect the world. How does the world get chayes from the Lakus? So far we said it's due to beetle. Then there's something more to be said in this. It says in this Maimon, it says there like this: the bechinas Odom Kadmein, the this bechina, this aspect of Odom Kadmein, which is the makif in the world, which encompasses the world from a godly perspective totally. And the complete encompassment, so the world is completely godly. So it says there, Hagam Shaleishaya Beyislapshus, that although it is not shayach, it is not applicable, not possible to perceive that there should be a islapshus of containment, in an internalized oyer of Adam Kadmon. It's not possible to experience makif in an internalized manner. But yet still. Let's explain what that means. It's not possible to do a makif in an internalized manner. It means that this, in simple terms, it means this. You are encompassed by a divine truth. There's no way that you can possibly know that truth. even though this is what encompasses. Oipnimi means that this would be something that you would be aware of. No. There's no way that you can possibly know. An interesting motion, an interesting way to allude to this. We spoke many times, constantly speak about that air is our place of life. Our sense of living means living in air. Interesting thing. Life is a super presence in the human being. And yet, we know of air. We know that there is air around us. We experience it. This is like knowing something which is super to knowledge. This is air, because air gives us a physical level of life. As a matter of fact, in air, life is something which we can experience. Why? Because indeed, air is something which we breathe in and breathe out. There's an in, there's a yes and no. So we are very well aware of the presence of air. Even though air must be constant, because this is what gives us life. And life cannot have interruption. It's one of those miraculous aspects of the physical life. On the one hand, it's physical life, and we can identify it. On the other hand, it is absolutely constant. And we explained many times, how do these two coexist? It is physical life, which means it comes and goes. On the other hand, it is constant. Because life cannot be interrupted.
What is the ha'ara in this?
What?
What is the ha'ara? How are we talking about? How are we calling this a ha'ara?
Who's called ha'ara?
Is this an example of a ha'ara or not?
An example of life, of constant. I didn't say ha'ara in this. I'm only explaining the meaning of life, that life is a constant. Even though, as a constant, it is a physical experience.
So this is like a mashal for makif, which at the beginning we said is unknown to us, but now we're bringing out how it's miraculously sensed.
That's right.
There's even the use of the word experience. We talked about breathing, and there's somehow experience. There's a sense of it.
I can Syria. You missed the word.
Even experience.
Experience. That's right. It's an amazing thing.
And yet it remains unknown, or you
it's
can
constant.
never. Right, which may constant, right? It remains constant, yet it is part of your life, and you can identify it, and it's in world, but yet
exactly.
Beyond.
Very good. So that is a big. It's a so to speak, a logical contradiction.
Okay.
In our own experience.
Right.
And what facilitates this contradictory sense to be present, and we should actually live with it on a constant basis, with this contradiction, without feeling any kind of anomaly. What makes it possible is the following. This is what we think. The reason it makes it possible is, what makes it possible is, yes, indeed, the Nivra, the human being who benefits from it, is a finite being. And he can receive life or air on a bit by bit, on a momentary manner. He has to breathe in and breathe out. He receives the chayas in a finite manner so that you would have physical life. You would have a self-identity. So on the one hand, so from the Nivra perspective, he is a regular Nivra that has a beginning, has a middle, and has an end. But then, this Nivra is given chayus. Chayus means a constant presence of the Boire, of the Creator. The Nivra is a finite entity. The Creator is not a finite entity. The Creator gives you chayas on a constant, absolutely constant basis. The Nivra is come and go, but the Beda is a constant. And here's where these two things come together. The Nivra is a finite entity. Therefore, he has a beginning and an end and a middle. He has to take in the chayas. But he is keenly aware. Please understand it. He is keenly aware that the source of his chayas is around him all the time. When he breathes out, he does not have a sensation that now there is no such thing as air. You never had that sensation. He's always in the air, even though he breathes in and out. In order to be a Nivra, he has to be being in and out. But the Boire's presence, the air presence itself, must be constant. This is what makes him a living creature. He's a created entity, a worldly entity, but he's alive. The reason alive is because he senses that the source of life is with him all the time. And here's where we have the illustration from the physical life. If a person should perceive himself being in an area that is no air, he would not be able to survive a moment. That perception alone would kill him. That perception alone would kill him. So the source of life is there with him all the time, even though he only relates to it on an in and out basis. Just one more, I know we have to cut off, one more nekuda that this clearly states. What this brings out, if we reflect on it, we will recognize. This brings out is this, that yes, indeed, we are creatures, created entities that have our limits. That come and go. But the Creator's effect or desire for our being is constant. He said on that basis, that we feel that we have a sense of constancy and an assuredness of being, of real being. Not on the basis of our own breathing in and out. On the basis that the air is there even when we breathe out. This is what gives us a sense of constancy. This is actually where the Nivro, the created entity, is at the level and experiences the Boyer himself. This is where the Boyer's, the element of Boyer is felt and sensed in the Nivro. If the Nivro should feel himself being independent of the Boyer, he would collapse. Even though the Boyer gives him a presence of his own. All right, I'm told that the time is up. So I don't know if time is up. It's up to you guys. I can stay.
Thanks,
Okay.
Rabbi. There
I
are
have
some guys still on the line. I'm going to kick off, and thank you so much. Shlomo's still with you, and he's recording.
All right.
Okay. I have a few questions. Can I ask
Sure.
now? The air is in and out. Is that mean that if it means to say that while the air is going out, he's still breathing that air? This gives him life.
What keeps him alive is the fact that the air from which he originally took the air is still there, the surrounding air, the makif of the air. The air as presented by the Boyer is still there. This is what keeps him alive.
Now, I mean to ask,
This is why it's called the makif.
understand, I mean to ask physically, when a person is constantly breathing in and out, so this second when he's not breathing in, when he's breathing out, if physically, is this breathing out also give him life, or no, it's only the surrounding what gives him life?
He has only the surrounding air. However, this surrounding life, he knows that this surrounding life also imbues itself into him bipnimius. It is not something that stands away from him. Even though it's a surrounding oil, this surrounding oil wants that he should live on a worldly level. This is like we said, we breathe in the air that's around us. But the air that's around us is pushing itself into our nostrils that we should live in our own little life. The Makif wants us to live on a pnimi level. Put it in our terms. We have the name from Amuna, Chochma, then there's Amuna, which is higher than human conception. Amuna wants us to understand what our life is. Amuna doesn't want us to stay on the Amuna level. Amuna wants it that Amuna should be translated in our worldly level. Amuna wants that we should translate our lives in a worldly level. To make a bracha, to do a mitzvah. Amuna is a super truth. What do you need mitzvah for? No, Amuna wants us to do a mitzvah in the morning.
Okay. Then another question. It was being explained that the oipanimi means that he knows it.
I'm sorry, that what?
Oipanimi is when he knows it. But on the other hand, knowing, you have to be outside of it. So why is it oipanimi?
There are two types of knowing. There's an acquired knowledge and an inherent knowledge. And the Rebbe created a human being. This is a very profound question I would like to explain. The Rebbe created a human being and he created lahavdil, all the animals. The human being, the Rebbe said that this is a different type of creature. What is the difference with this creature and the other creatures? They all live, they all breathe air. The difference is that the human being is b'tzalmei musena. What b'tzalmei musena mean? That he not only lives, but he only knows what he is. He also knows what he is about. This is why the human being can be given commands and mitzvahs to do. You can't give mitzvahs to lahavdil animals. A human being, he can give mitzvahs. Why can't you give mitzvahs to animals? The reason you can't give mitzvahs to animals is that the animal does not have a perception of being, except when he's being forced to act. A human being has a perception of being where he does things voluntarily. His own presence in the world tells him, act this way and don't act this way. He's a divine level of presence. His own sense of being tells him how he should act and how he should not act. This is B'tzalmei Muslim. This is a unique creation where he recognizes that he is in existence, but this existence itself has a divine level of truth, of presence. So that, yes, you exist in the world, but act from a super worldly perspective. When you're going to eat something, make a bracha. Mention that the Rebbe is the one who created this world. But I have a world right in front of me. Do not partake of world as such. Partake of world only from the perspective that Hashem is presenting to you. This is the human being. This is the B'tzalmei musena. He has the tzelem, he has all the functionality, but he's also likened to that which is higher than world.
But why do we call this that he knows it?
Okay, the word knows it in this case does not mean he finds out about it. It's called self-knowledge, self-awareness. Self-awareness is not something that one becomes aware when something is bothering you. A human being has a self-awareness. This meaning from self-awareness is also called knowledge, but it's not an acquired knowledge. So why then is it called knowledge? What is he aware of? He's aware that of the significance of his presence. What is the significance of his presence? The significance of his presence is is that he is a divine creation. This is knowledge. He knows what is he here, why is he in this world, what does he stand for? He stands for bringing godliness into the world.
Okay. This is helped me a lot, because to distinguish between self-awareness and acquired knowledge.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that's how we go in circles until we get to the point.
Okay, and I'd like to see if I can get a better understanding on Udam Katman. What happened to the on the Udam Katman? Is Udam Katman like Oir Chesed, is I still didn't get it. I'm trying for months to get the Udam Katman. What is this? Is this Hashem himself? Is this the Oir of Hashem?
Adam Kadmon is world at the oil level. What is a human being? What's the difference between a human being and an animal? Both are in the physical world. Both have partake from physical food to exist. What's the difference?
Betzalmaini was just said. The Udam being is Betzalmaini Kidmesaini. And then the
Okay, so what's the difference practically? What's the difference between the human being's self-awareness and the animal's lahavdil self-awareness? The difference is.
I'm trying to answer to see where I'm missing.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
The animal is aware of him, of what he needs. The human being is aware of his mission.
That's good. That's good. However, one more notch has to be added to this. His mission, his divine mission, not his mission as a human being. Somebody's got a job. And his job, he has to do various things. He has a function that he, assigned function that he has to do. If he is a dedicated employee, and he wants to fulfill his mission as an employee, in every turn, every decision that he makes will be on the basis of what would my employer want me to do under these circumstances. This is the pshat, a true, an honest employee. He doesn't waste time on his own interests. His time is dedicated to his employer. And even in the personal decisions, the decisions are based on what the employer wants him to do. Therefore, even his self-awareness is knowing what he has to do, he's constantly getting from instruction from his employer. because his time is he's being paid for the time.
Okay, so coming back to the Udam Kadmon.
Oh, so Odom Kadmon. As we said before, Odom Kadmon is the worldly perception in the oil level. What's the difference between the oil level or the Keli level? The difference is, on the Keli level, there's something he constantly has to be provided for him to maintain his presence. Oil, he gets directly from the essence. He doesn't need a personal identity. When you try to explain something at Piseichel, then you have to know who you are and who you're talking to, and that's how you explain. When you understand things to yourself in your own seichel, there isn't this interaction. You're not explaining things to yourself. You perceive things as they are in their source. This is the oil level. This is understanding in the source of understanding. In that insight, it's not a process of a kasha and a teretz. You go directly, you see how the reality is. This is why I'm always pointing out. We seem to think that learning by asking kashas is a valid method of learning. That is a valid method of learning on a worldly level. But if you want to learn the way your neshama, to understand what the neshama is telling you, what the seichel is telling you, it's not through kasha. It is by insight. What is this about? What's the truth behind this? Let me give you an example. We always say that breathing, we have to breathe in and out, but there's an element that the air is pushing itself into our nostrils. This thing and that the air is pushing itself into our nostrils. Are we aware of it?
No.
Not aware of it. In other words, we're not aware of the whole phenomenon that we have to take in, air in. It's there automatically. The oil element that air is supposed to provide is there automatically. This is what we live with. Not the Keli element that there is an in and out. And it's being pushed into it. We're not aware of that. This is the pshat, the world at the oil level.
So when we talk about chesed and gevira, this is oil with bekaila.
I'm sorry, I missed something. How are you talking about?
There's the oil Eure Chesed and the other Eures are Eure
Oil
Bekeilen.
Chesed and open.
No.
Oil Yosh.
Eure Chesed.
Chesed. Oh,
Yes. Is that already Eure Bekeilen? Udem Kadman is before because that's not Eure Bekeilen?
that's right. Oil Chesed. This is how the oil is established in the Kriya Chesed.
But Udem Kadman is not being called, I mean, generally we say Udem Kadman, we don't say Oir, we don't call it Oir. Even the Rebbe now is saying it's a Makef, but we refer to it as Udem Kadman. It sounds like the point is not so much the Oir, it has a different, no?
Perhaps the reason it's not referred to as oil is because it doesn't come begilui. It is still contained in the source, but it is oil. It's oil that does not even come begilui.
And now we can understand it better because, and it's referred as Adam. What's the referred of Adam? Because it's the self-awareness of the whole world, or
Everything, top to bottom. Adam, the human being, is unique in that he has chokhmah and he has feet. When he walks, he's aware that he's walking with his feet.
Okay, Yasher Koyach.
Arab Shaimer, call tip, so we say the statements.
Oh meine, dann geht Shabbos, und alle getting.
I'll give you some here, call.
Das jetzt.